I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I really need advice. I'm Lisa, 28F, and I've been married to Mark, 35M, for 3 years. We've been together for 5 years total. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue when I had just graduated college and started my first job as a graphic designer. Mark was already established in his career as a software engineer. He seemed so mature and put together compared to the guys I usually dated. Our relationship moved pretty quickly. Within 6 months, we were living together, and a year later, he proposed during a romantic weekend getaway. I was over the moon. My parents were a bit concerned about the age gap and how fast things were progressing, but I assured them Mark was different from my previous boyfriends. Up until recently, I thought we had a great relationship. We rarely fought and always seemed to be on the same page about important things. Mark could be a bit controlling at times, insisting on managing our finances, getting upset if I went out with friends without him, but I chalked it up to him being protective. I'm currently 32 weeks pregnant with our first child, a little girl. We were both so excited when we found out I was expecting. Mark has always wanted to be a dad and I've dreamed of being a mom. We spent weeks debating names and designing the nursery. Mark even talked about cutting back his work hours to be more involved. The pregnancy hasn't been easy though. I had terrible morning sickness for the first 4 months, losing nearly 10 pounds. Mark wasn't very sympathetic, often complaining about having to pick up my slack around the house. Things got better in the second trimester, but then at my 20-week scan, the doctor diagnosed me with placenta previa. For those who don't know, it's a condition where the placenta is covering the cervix. The doctor explained that it often resolves on its own as the uterus grows, but in my case it hasn't. She told us it could lead to dangerous bleeding if not monitored carefully. Because of the placenta previa, I was put on some activity restrictions starting at 20 weeks. Nothing too extreme at first, just told to take it easy and avoid heavy lifting or strenuous exercise. Mark seemed annoyed by this, constantly urging me to push through and stay active. He even signed us up for prenatal yoga classes without asking me first. At my 30-week appointment, the restrictions got a lot stricter. My doctor told me no sex, no vaginal exams, no heavy lifting at all, no standing for more than 2 hours at a time, and absolutely no high-impact activities like running or jumping. She stressed how important it was to follow these restrictions to avoid bleeding or preterm labor. I've been doing my best to follow all the guidelines. It's not easy, especially since I normally lead a pretty active lifestyle. I had to give up my weekly tennis matches with friends and stop volunteering at the local animal shelter. But I know it's what's best for the baby. The problem is, Mark doesn't seem to understand or care about the restrictions at all. He's been constantly pressuring me to have sex, getting frustrated when I say no, and trying to convince me that a little won't hurt. He even suggested that my doctor was being overly cautious just to cover herself legally. I've tried explaining the risks over and over. I've shown him the pamphlets from my doctor. I've had him come to appointments with me so the doctor could explain directly. Nothing seems to get through to him. He just keeps insisting that I'm being dramatic and that pregnant women have sex all the time. It's not just about sex either. Mark keeps trying to get me to do things I'm not supposed to, like help him rearrange furniture or go on long hikes. When I refuse, he accuses me of using the pregnancy as an excuse to be lazy. He's made comments about how much weight I've gained and how I'll need to bounce back quickly after birth. I've started to dread being alone with Mark. He's always pushing boundaries, trying to wear me down. Sometimes I give in to smaller things just to keep the peace. I let him talk me into going to a crowded amusement park for his nephew's birthday, even though standing in long lines for hours left me exhausted and in pain. Things came to a head last week. Mark had been badgering me all day about having sex. I was exhausted and emotional and just wanted to rest. But he wouldn't let up. He kept touching me and trying to initiate things, even after I said no multiple times. Finally, I snapped and yelled at him to leave me alone. He got angry and stormed out of the house. When he came back a few hours later, he acted like nothing had happened. He was all sweet and apologetic, bringing me flowers and my favorite takeout food. I was still upset but also relieved that he seemed to finally get it. We had a nice dinner together and I started to relax. But then as we were cleaning up, Mark suddenly grabbed me and started kissing my neck. Before I could even process what was happening, he had pushed me up against the counter and was grinding against me. I froze up, not sure how to react. A part of me was scared to push him away and make him angry again. So I just stood there as he kept going. Afterwards, I felt awful, physically and emotionally. I was cramping badly and spotting a little. I was terrified that something was wrong with the baby. But I was also scared to tell Mark or go to the hospital. I didn't want him to get in trouble or for anyone to know what had happened. I ended up calling my sister Amy, 32F, in tears. She came over right away and took me to the ER. Thankfully, everything checked out okay with the baby. But the doctor was very concerned about what had happened. She gave me a bunch of domestic violence pamphlets and strongly urged me to reconsider my living situation. I'm still in shock about everything. I never in a million years thought Mark would do something like this. He's always been so excited about the baby. I don't understand how he could put our daughter at risk like that. A part of me wants to believe it was just a horrible mistake and that he'll realize how serious it is now. But another part of me is scared of what else he might do. I'm staying with Amy for now while I try to figure things out. Mark has been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and anger that I abandoned him. He's threatening to come to Amy's house if I don't come home soon. I'm scared he might actually do it. I don't know what to do. I love Mark and I want our daughter to have her dad in her life. We've built a whole life together over the past 5 years. The thought of throwing that all away is heartbreaking. But I'm terrified of going back home. What if it happens again? What if next time it causes real harm to the baby? I feel so lost and alone. I don't have many close friends. Mark always said we should focus on each other rather than outside relationships. My family lives several hours away. Amy has been amazing, but I know I can't stay with her forever. I'm scared about potentially being a single mom. I don't make enough to support myself and the baby on my own. Mark has always handled most of our finances. I guess I'm looking for advice on what to do next. Should I try to work things out with Mark? Is couples counseling an option? Or do I need to start planning for divorce and single motherhood? Has anyone been in a similar situation? I'm desperate for any guidance or support right now. Thank you for reading this far. Update 1. Thank you so much to everyone who commented on my original post. I was overwhelmed by all the supportive messages and advice. I'm sorry it's taken me a while to update, a lot has happened in the past couple weeks. The night after I made my post, I started having really intense cramps and bleeding. Amy rushed me to the hospital where they discovered I was in preterm labor. Despite the doctor's best efforts to stop it, my daughter was born via emergency C-section at just 32 weeks and 4 days gestation. She's so tiny, only 3 pounds 11 ounces, but she's a little fighter. The NICU team has been amazing. She's currently on oxygen support and being monitored closely, but they're optimistic about her prognosis. It's been incredibly hard not being able to hold her or care for her myself. But I'm just so grateful she's alive and getting stronger every day. As for Mark, things have gotten complicated. He showed up at the hospital while I was in labor, having been called by the nurses before I could tell them not to. In the chaos and pain of the moment, I didn't have the energy to keep him out of the delivery room. A part of me was honestly glad to have him there holding my hand. For the first couple days after the birth, Mark was attentive and emotional, constantly by my side or at NICU. He kept apologizing and swearing he would change. In my postpartum haze, I started to wonder if maybe we could work things out after all. But then reality set in. Mark started pressuring me to come home with him, saying the baby needed us to be a united family. When I hesitated, he got angry and accused me of trying to keep his daughter from him. He even threatened to get lawyers involved if I didn't stop playing games. That's when I snapped out of it and remembered why I left in the first place. I realized I couldn't trust Mark to put our daughter's needs first. With the help of a hospital social worker, I filed for an emergency protective order. Mark is allowed supervised visits with a baby in the NICU, but he can't contact me directly. The social worker also put me in touch with a domestic violence support group. Talking to other women who've been through similar situations has been eye-opening. I'm starting to see patterns in Mark's behavior that I never noticed before, or maybe just didn't want to admit. I've also retained a lawyer to start divorce proceedings. It's not what I wanted, but I know it's necessary to protect myself and my daughter. My parents have been incredibly supportive, helping me financially and offering for us to live with them once the baby is discharged. The hardest part has been dealing with Mark's family. His parents and siblings have been calling nonstop, leaving voicemails accusing me of tearing apart their family. They are convinced I'm exaggerating or making up the abuse allegations. Mark's sister even cornered me in the NICU one day, begging me to give him another chance for the baby's sake. I'm trying to stay focused on my daughter and not let the drama affect my milk supply or bonding time with her. The NICU nurses have been wonderful about enforcing visiting hours and making sure I have privacy when I need it. They've even offered to testify about Mark's behavior if needed for the custody case. Physically, I'm still recovering from the C-section. The incision got infected, so I'm on antibiotics and having to go in for wound care every few days. It's been a struggle to find time for self-care between pumping milk for the baby and dealing with legal stuff. But Amy has been a godsend, bringing me meals and helping with household chores. Emotionally, I'm all over the place. Some days I feel strong and empowered, ready to take on whatever challenges come my way. Other days I'm overwhelmed with guilt and doubt, wondering if I'm making the right choices for my daughter. The hormones and sleep deprivation aren't helping. I'm still processing everything that's happened. Some days I can barely believe this is my life now. But seeing my daughter's tiny face gives me the strength to keep going. I know I'm doing the right thing for both of us, even if it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Thank you again to everyone who encouraged me to prioritize my safety and my daughter's well-being. Your words gave me the courage to take action when I needed it most. I'll update again once we're out of the NICU and settled somewhere safe. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update. So much has changed, it's hard to know where to start. The good news is that my daughter Lily is doing amazingly well. She's up to 5 pounds now and the doctors are talking about discharging her soon. I've been able to start breastfeeding and do skin-to-skin contact, which has been incredible. I never knew I could love someone so fiercely. Unfortunately, things with Mark have gotten worse. He's fighting the protective order and custody arrangements tooth and nail. His lawyer is arguing that I'm mentally unstable and made up the abuse allegations. They're trying to paint me as an unfit mother who's using the baby to punish Mark. It's been absolutely brutal. Mark is telling everyone who will listen that I cheated on him and the baby isn't even his. He's turned most of our mutual friends against me. His family is harassing my parents, calling at all hours and showing up uninvited to try to see Lily. The stress has been unbelievable. I've had to start seeing a therapist to deal with the anxiety and PTSD symptoms. Some days I can barely eat or sleep. But I'm trying to stay strong for Lily's sake. My lawyer assures me we have a solid case. We have medical records documenting the injuries from Mark's assault, as well as the premature birth it caused. The NICU staff have all given statements supporting my version of events. And Mark's angry outbursts and erratic behavior aren't doing him any favors. Still, I'm terrified of what might happen in court. What if the judge believes Mark's lies? What if I lose custody of Lily? The thought of her being alone with him makes me physically ill. I'm doing my best to document everything and follow my lawyer's advice. But it's exhausting constantly being on guard, wondering what Mark will try next. He's been showing up at my parents' house unannounced, claiming he just wants to talk. My dad had to threaten to call the police last time. On top of all this, I'm trying to figure out how to support myself and Lily long term. I can't stay with my parents forever, and my maternity leave from work is almost up. I'm looking into daycare options, but the wait lists are insane and the costs are astronomical. I'm considering asking for a reduction in hours at work, but I'm worried about how that might affect my custody case. My friends from the domestic violence support group have been a lifeline. They've helped me create a safety plan and connected me with resources for single moms. One of them even offered to be a character witness if needed for the custody hearing. Despite everything, I'm trying to stay positive and focus on the little moments with Lily. Her first real smile, the way she grabs my finger when I feed her, the adorable noises she makes in her sleep. She's the reason I'm fighting so hard. Thank you all for your continued support and advice. It means more than you know. I'll update again once we have a court date and some more concrete news to share. Update 3. I know it's been a while since I last posted. The past few months have been an absolute whirlwind. But I finally have some positive news to share. After a long and grueling court battle, I've been granted full custody of Lily. Mark has been given limited supervised visitation rights, but only if he completes anger management and parenting classes. The judge cited the medical evidence of abuse and Mark's erratic behavior in court as key factors in the decision. It's an enormous relief, but I know the fight isn't over. Mark is already talking about appealing the ruling. And I worry about what he might do when he realizes he can't control me or Lily anymore. For now though, we're safe. Lily is thriving, she's hitting all her milestones and has the most adorable laugh. We're living with my parents while I finish my degree and save up for our own place. It's not always easy, but we're making it work. I've had to make a lot of adjustments. Balancing work, school, and single motherhood is challenging. There are days when I feel completely overwhelmed. But I'm slowly finding my footing and building a support system. My boss has been understanding about my situation and allowed me to switch to a more flexible schedule. I've also connected with a local single parents group that offers childcare exchanges and emotional support. Financially, things are tight. Child support from Mark helps, but it's not enough to cover all our expenses. I've had to learn how to budget and make sacrifices. No more impulse purchases or fancy dinners out. But seeing Lily happy and healthy makes it all worth it. I still have days where I struggle with anxiety and self-doubt. But therapy has been helping, and I'm slowly learning to trust my instincts again. Most importantly, I know I made the right choice in leaving Mark and protecting Lily. To anyone out there in a similar situation, please don't wait as long as I did to get help. Trust your gut if something feels wrong. You and your children deserve to be safe and respected. Thank you all again for the support and encouragement throughout this journey. I honestly don't know if I would have had the strength to leave without the advice I received here. You've made more of a difference than you know.